Good morning, everyone. My name is Brinley Collins, and I'm the founder of HS Connect. And we're here today with Troy Fugate, who is the Vice President of Field Operations for a consulting company who deals with biotech, genetic and cell therapy. And he is here today to talk to us about biologics and give us kind of a crash course on what a biologic is, how it impacts HS specifically, and the body in general. So thank you, Troy, for joining us today. I really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Thanks. So first of all, can you give us kind of a little bit of a crash course on what biologics are?
Yeah, absolutely. I can tell you really quickly, we always think about drugs and we think of them as a general category. Drugs are broken down into various things. They can be chemically derived, coming from the chemicals harvested from the ground, derived in the laboratory. And then there's biologics. Biologics, in a simple definition, is that they come from living organisms, be it a human themselves. I can take blood, I can take tissue, I can take bone marrow. They can come from other things other than humans. You can take the virus. That's a great example of one that's currently in the news. So you can take a virus or bacterium and you can actually synthesize that and change that to be a biological drug.
Excellent. Thank you. That, kind of breaks it down with especially what we're dealing with currently and gives it a little bit more perspective. How do biologics affect people in general? Like, especially, for us, it's a chronic inflammation issue and the dealing with our HS in particular. So how do biologics kind of impact something like HS or make changes or help us out with that?
Biologics now can be used as something that would work with the body to help the body with diseases, whatever that may be. If you look at the inflammation caused by this particular disease, it's the body's natural reaction to something going on. You can take the biological treatments and work with the body to control that. That's where biologics can come into play very significantly. I personally believe that we are on the precipice of a fundamental leap in pharmaceutical treatment and of disease for man, that we are changing the world. And I can tell you now, specifically, I work on things that 20 years ago would have been absolutely unheard of. The things that I hear are Star Trek type of treatments and cures. And that's the thing that I really am interested in, not the treatment of disease, but the cure of the disease. I don't want to treat it so that you're on it for the rest of your life. I want to cure you of your illness. I really think in the not too distant future, there might be something out there to actually just not only alleviate the inflammation and the pain, but actually treat the cause of it and eliminate it.
We all welcome and look forward to that. And we hope that it's in the not too distant future as well, because that would be absolutely amazing. And we do know, in the past, HS has kind of been understudied, and we do know that that is changing too in the world we're in today. And that's one of our goals as an organization, is to really promote all of the study and, discovering efficient treatments for it and helping patients and physicians figure out how to manage the condition and eventually, hopefully, one day cure the condition. So it's definitely, there's a lot of things happening in the HS realm, which is wonderful to see, because we know that a lot of people think that, it is still understudied, but we know it is definitely making an impact now. So we're glad to be a part of that and hope to continue that trend.
Good work.
Thank you. So as far as the biologics go, how do they work on our system? Kind of, obviously layman's terms, because I need that as well. So how do they impact us and how do they work? So if you're taking, an injectable biologic, let's say, how does that impact, or what effect does it have on your system?
That's a great question. This is the whole concept. I'm very interested in biologics and gene and cell therapy, CAR T type of therapies, that it actually coordinates with your body and it helps your body understand what's going on, and it helps your body treat itself. That's the difference between just classic drugs and the future, where it opens the eyes of the body's defense mechanism and says, hey, there's something going on here that doesn't make sense, and we need to attack it and destroy it. Those are the types of things that are very interesting. And some of these are things that I could take blood out of your body, take the blood, take the cells, particular cells that would be of interest, train those, teach those, and then inject them back into you. That is truly a say a boutique type of treatment, that if you had a particular disease, a particular illness, something that your particular DNA, that your background and your genetics are having, that particular treatment is needed for you, we can take those and make it work for you specifically, and really alter the way your body is made up, your DNA, really. And that would eliminate it, certainly has the potential of eliminating it in the human system going forward as we procreate and we have children. That propensity of those diseases, those genetic errors, can be treated. And that is definitely on the very near future, the forefront. People are actively working on those right now.
It's so fascinating that, we think that our bodies are so evolved, and the fact that you can take something out of your body, train it, and put it back in your body is beyond fascinating to me. And the people who come up with this, they're equally as fascinating. Like how it's so beyond what a regular, brain can consider as being fathomable. So I'm constantly enthralled by all of it. How do biologics differ from immunosuppressants?
Immunosuppressants go into the body and they say, stop seeing something going on. It's suppressing certain things. A biologic goes in and it says not to suppress it, but to control it and say what to work toward and what not to work toward. It's, if you think of your cells as a body, a human there, that's little people inside you going around, something that has specific tasks, that think that they are there to do certain things, you can now actually communicate with them to say, do these things or don't do these things. That's the real difference with biologics. And immunosuppressant is just something you take to say, suppress that from acting on the body. And in this particular disease, to say, don't do this. But you also open the door for other infections that go on that should be looked at and attacked. And that's where it's sort of carpet bombing with something that hits friendly and faux buildings alike. So what we're doing is very strategic, to go in and say, do certain things very strategically.
If I'm understanding it, it would be biologics go in and they give the instructions to all of their workers, right? You do this, don't do this. And immunosuppressants just come in and say, stop doing this altogether, everyone stop. But the biologics come in and say, okay, carry on, you continue doing this, you stop doing this, and you change what you're doing here. Would that be accurate?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
That would be very accurate.
So biologics are a better manager than an immunosuppressant. If you consider it.
That's a great way of putting it. Yeah.
Perfect. So this comes up, especially in light of COVID lately. Are people on biologics more susceptible to illnesses or infections than people not on a biologic?
Oh, no. Actually, I think it's quite the reverse. If you're on a biologic, you can focus certain activities to go on, where if you're on, say, the classic pharma or chemical type of treatment, it really opens up infections. That's why very interested in some of the current technology. And this is very cutting edge that I'm talking about. So these are things that are very much coming on board. There's a lot of interest in it. So, and it's exactly for that reason, that it doesn't kill the body like chemotherapy. To treat the body, it actually helps the body grow.
Perfect. Yeah. Now there are so many different biologics, right? I mean, we know of one FDA approved biologic for HS specifically, but we know that there are a multitude of other biologics, and that sometimes they're referred to as cousins of each other. Can you explain how they differ from one another? Like what would make one more effective for, a specific disease or illness than another?
Yeah. Well, it's a great analogy. It's very interesting, the concept of a cousin. I guess like people, the cousin, we're similar, but we're different. You think of my cousin and myself, we're very different people. But we are related to some level, and different people. Obviously, different people have different genetic makeups. And with COVID, what we find are people with certain blood types, O, A, B. That really had an impact on the effect of the virus on that person. So yeah, and that's why it's very interesting now to consider biologics or the gene therapies, the cell therapies, the CAR T. They're very specific to a particular type of DNA or genetic makeup of people. And so it can be focused on a particular group of people based on your heritage, based on your background. So you can effectively treat a person based on their particular makeup. In the classic pharma, and I made lots of these. I would make millions of tablets, millions of capsules, millions of vials of injectable drugs. And it was just meant for the masses. It wasn't meant to focus on you and your particular needs. So that's the difference between the biologics. And yeah, I could say they're all very similar, but they can all be very focused on a particular need.
Yeah, it sounds like it's going from more of a one size fits all approach to individualizing treatments and plans and whatever kind of drugs would become helpful for people as we're going through. Amazing what's on the horizon, it sounds like. And then as far as antibodies go, we know that people can build up antibodies to specific biologics or injectable drugs. So how does that work? Is there anything people can do to avoid building antibodies, or is that something that your body just will naturally do regardless?
Antibodies are natural. Antibodies are going to happen. So, and sometimes that you can work toward that in your favor in the COVID situation, or all of the diseases out there. You want those antibodies in there. You want that ability to fight something that's going on. The other side of that is the biologics, if used in classic pharma type of philosophy, can go in and build up the antibody against that. It depends on what you're trying to treat and what you want to do with it. That's where you get into the very focused use of a biologic to treat a certain person for a certain thing. And that way you treat the body, you actually use the antibody philosophy in your mind to say, I want to treat a certain thing. In this particular disease, some of the things that I'm looking at coming up aren't so much working to help the body with an antibody to look at that. It's understanding the link in your DNA. If you look at the structure of it, there's some links there that are problematic that cause this. That's a current philosophy and thinking of this. And it's probably pretty right from the research I did with this. And so it goes in and it's saying, I can go in and actually take your cells and put in strands here and change this around a bit so that it makes the body actually not cause the symptoms of this disease. There was a study I was looking at where a particular young woman had this very severe, and after a week, the pain levels went down. After a few months, they were able to take on a full-time job and go back and have a social life. So these are things that are very much coming up. And I would definitely say there's a lot of them out there. The one thing I did do some research, and you probably already know this, if you go to the clinicaltrials.gov, the website, you look up this disease, but instead of just looking up the general things, look for gene therapy, look for cell therapy, look for CAR T, C-A-R space T or C-A-R hyphen T, and look up those particular things and do some searching on that. I can tell you, you'll find a plethora of things coming on in the future, things that they're looking at. And it looks very promising. I tell you, some of the things I looked at coming out from this were extremely promising.
It is amazing what seems like is coming down the pike. And I know that, pain is obviously a huge issue for most of us, and that can be the most debilitating part of HS in some cases. So knowing that we can potentially control some of that pain as an option in the future is amazing. I definitely look forward to that, and I'm sure most of the HS sufferers do as well.
Oh yeah.
Anything else you want to add? This has been so fascinating to me. I can't wait to hear what else is coming, but anything else you want to add on this?
No, I can always just say, and I talk to people with sometimes very life-taking diseases, all of these things out there. I offered this bit of thinking, and there's always hope. We haven't heard you for a long time in your cries of pain. We hear it now, I can tell you. There's a lot of drive for the diseases that hit smaller populations. And looking at this particular disease, there's hundreds of thousands of people with it. So it's going out there looking at saying, we're all people. We all deserve that right to have a pain-free, viable, healthy, happy life that we can go into the future and be productive people and be happy. So we've heard it. There's always hope. I tell you, there's so many things I see going out there. I can say our children will look back on us and say, you did what? Let alone now my daughter looks at me and says, you dialed on a phone with the little thing. And I was like, oh yeah, think of this in the world of medicine. We will be able to look at things in the future and say, wow, I really see that coming about. And so this is one, I tell you, I have high hopes that this will be tackled, and it'll be tackled to the genetic level to eliminate it, not treat it, not treat the pain, not treat the skin irritation, the problems with that, not the surgery, but to eliminate it from your cells, your DNA.
And I sure hope that's true. And I hope that there is something that comes about sooner rather than later, especially for the sake of my daughter, who unfortunately inherited it from me. But yeah, it's the amount of medical marvels that are coming about are amazing. And the amount of people that we can encourage to participate in clinical trials is so important so that we can get the information needed for the efficacy of these treatments out there. So we definitely, on our website, we have a link to all of the active clinical trials for HS specifically. And I'll talk with Denise about looking up the other ones that you had mentioned in here so that we can link those if there's any kind of, link between the two of them. So thank you for that. Troy, thank you so much. This has been absolutely fascinating. I'm so glad to hear that there are so many things on the horizon. We know that it takes time for things to come through and work their way through the system and get approval, but that's where it becomes all of our responsibility as well. If there is an opportunity to try something out as far as a clinical trial or a study, to participate in that, because we're the only people who can move our disease forward towards finding a cure, or at least, some much better treatment options as well. So thank you for bringing that up as well. Thank you again. I really, really appreciate your time so much. You've been absolutely enlightening, and I can't wait to do more on this as we come up with more options.
Excellent.
Have a good day, Troy. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.